Good morning and welcome to the breakfast meeting. My name is Mordecai Mulisa. I want to start with appreciating you so much for keeping your eyes on NBS. This is another edition where we talk about a couple of things, but this time around we're going to be discussing more to do with money and banking. And of course, I will start with telling you that government of Uganda a few years ago projected the economy to grow by 6.2% in the next financial year. That was 2019-2020, with agriculture, industry and security and services projected to grow on around 3.8, 5.6 and 7.8 respectively. Now there's a couple of factors that actually influence those or that whole kind of a system. We will understand more when we go deeper into this conversation. And today we're going to be discussing ease of doing business. Well, I have the opportunity to introduce to you the two gentlemen and lady that I have in the studio today, Dr. Peter Ngategize, who happens to be the head of Private Sector Development Unit from the Minstry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and of course Ms. Frida Bwiza-Nayebare, Director Planning and Research from Uganda Registration Services Bureau. You're welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, lady.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I will start with you. Could you throw more light about ease of business?
Thank you very much. As I've said, it's a pleasure to be here. Basically, ease of doing business means exactly that. How easy is it to start a business in the country? How easy is it to access the requirements you need, credit inclusive, it's the most talked about. How easy is it to connect electricity? How easy is it to get your land title? How easy is it to connect with electricity? How easy is it to transport across the border? How easy is it to close a company if you have to close it because of COVID or indebtedness? So that's the scope of things that we talk about when we're talking about ease of doing business. It translates to how much money then you can make, how sustainable your businesses can be, and how you are able to expand and become sustainable.
Right there, how do you rate Uganda's performance regionally and on international levels?
Well, there are indices that we have been using to rate the country. For example, the Global Competitiveness Index, which monitors 140 countries, but also we have the Doing Business report of the World Bank, which basically monitors 190 economies. Last year, we were rated at 116 out of the 190 economies, and that was an improvement of 11 points from 127 the previous year. But I think I would hasten to add that with COVID, now we are starting to say, maybe we need to look more into our own economy's dynamics, because global value chains have been disrupted and the environment is demanding that area. So we are starting to look at indices like what the Economic Policy Research Center is producing, the Business Climate Index, or private institutions like Stanbic Bank or PwC. For example, Stanbic Bank monitors the Purchasing Managers Index, looking at procurements and dynamics happening in the economy. All in all, I think COVID pandemic has demonstrated that our businesses are resilient. Yes, we are still talking about problems and stimulus, but if you listen quietly, you see an economy that is resilient, that businesses are actually, like the agricultural sector, has generally weathered the storm, apart from a few enterprises like poultry, you may have heard about this, and others. Of course, I don't want to talk about tourism. It's obvious when you ground all the planes. But otherwise, we see an economy that is generally resilient and competitive.
Okay, we are going to get back to the resiliency of the economy. To you, Ms. Nayebare, if I may ask, what is Uganda's ranking in easing doing a business and its relevance in post-COVID-19?
Thank you very much. The Uganda's ranking, again, as Dr. pointed, is now rated at 116 out of 190 economies. The World Bank rates different economies or in terms of indices, starting a business indicator, which involves URSB, KCCA for trading license, URA for issuing VAT or tax identification numbers. And it also measures getting credit. Affordable credit is a big issue. And the use of measurement is whether we have a collateral registry in place. We recently passed a law of securities interest in movable property, and that equips a private sector. It also equips the small business enterprises in how best they can expand their credit portfolio and access credit by using a movable collateral. I hope in this COVID-19 we understand that there could be businesses that might not pass through the storm, but there are also businesses that have opened. Now, for us to make sure that we sustain businesses using that securities interest in movable property is going to help them use warehouse receipts. For example, you could have a silo of produce, and then you could use that as a warehouse receipt. There are lots of portfolios, so we are working with the financial sector deepening to improve on financial inclusion, and also banking association. The Bankers Association helps us on how best they can expand their products and services in different banks, so that if there is a trader or a businessman, they can actually use the movable collateral in terms of receipts or turnover, rather than thinking that a fixed asset is only acceptable as a collateral. So I think that is going to be a plus, and it's going to help our businesses. We're also improving on turnaround time of registration of businesses. There are companies that will open, as I earlier said, but I understand that if you adopt electronic strategies and you have a full online registration, that will help us a lot in improving the turnaround time, reduction in procedures, and the cost it takes. We have adopted measures even during this COVID-19 to make sure that much as we are not in office now, a client can still access our service, like in URSB. They have been able to send emails to us so that we can respond to them in real time. And if any country that adopted the measures World Bank proposed in terms of these different indices, they have been able to sail through the storm of COVID because they find you prepared. They find that you have adopted to online systems, and there's a way you can actually communicate to your clients. So if you're to improve public service delivery, I think the adoption of technology is key, and having a collateral registry. We also have, they also measure protecting of minority shareholders, and that increased by almost 22. Depending on the previous ranking. Protecting minority shareholders ranks for all different corporations or existing businesses, where a person has to explicitly put that there is conflict of interest in case you're going to you're going to sell shares, or there is mergers and acquisition, or someone wants to change a director, but the minority shareholder must be in the know. What has been happening, even this during COVID, we are making sure that that is going to be amended and provided in the Companies Act. There are lots of other factors, but also I would like to state that since we have a doing business committee that has been coordinating through, of course, the supervision of Minstry of Finance, they've been coordinating doing business, ease of doing business, and some of them are URSB, KCCA, MIIC for personal identification, and of course Ministry of Local Government. So us trying to sail through the storm again is providing access to services as an implementing agents of some of these reforms. By providing access, we created a one-stop shop center. I hope you have visited it, and I hope you should actually visit it. The one-stop center has almost 12 agencies, and we are trying to translate that infrastructure into an online platform where there is an interface for all those agencies. And I've seen it in best practices. Actually, countries that rank highly have that type of facility, so that you do not have to move from one office to another, but you can actually access all those services in one place. And we are working on that, and I hope that will help us sail through the storm of COVID.
Mr.
Ngategize.
Yeah, the pronunciation of the name. Thank you so much for helping me out. Well, if I read here, Uganda ranks 116 out of 190 economies,
Yes.
12th in sub-Saharan countries, and 35th in getting credit, 40th in starting business. The question is, what are some of the gaps that are filled, that should be filled to enable Uganda, in as far as starting business is concerned, to compare or to get to those countries that it is very easy?
Thank you very much. One of the indices around which we can do better is exactly what Fred was talking about, starting a business. As you listened in,
Yes.
we are talking about this index talks about registering your company, then you get a TIN number which is issued by URA. Then you get, you need actually TIN number, which is a NIN, which is given by NIRA. You get a trading license issued by KCCA, and you need to register with NSSF. Okay? Those are basically 5 agencies you deal with. So when they come to rank us, we end up becoming like 166 on that particular indicator out of that 190. So one of the gaps which is being bridged is to basically automate or put these processes online, so that, as she said, you literally have a one-stop center, both physical, preferably online, that you register in Mordecai, that's your name, you register in, you have Mordecai Incorporated. When you are doing it, the function of URSB, online you are able to send the system to URA and you get a TIN number. Then you feed into the NIRA inputs, you are able to link with the NIN, and you are able to communicate with the city, the KCCA platform, so that this whole process doesn't involve any movement, any filling of several forms of each of the 5 agencies. Even payment is done basically once. You just do it online or in at least in one bank. That would reduce our ranking to below 100. Maybe 50 or 80, that particular indicator. And that is something we are working on. I'm glad to say we are completing a building in Kororo, which will provide a whole floor to be the one-stop center to deliver all these services. And our key institutions of Uganda Investment Authority, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, Capital Markets Authority will be housed there. And then these other agencies will basically bring their services there, and you will have both a physical and an online one-stop center. That we hope to achieve by the end of the year. The building should be finished, and these people, URSB and Uganda Investment Authority, which by law under the investment code is mandated on this aspect, they are going to deliver that soon, and our performance will improve.
Thank you so much. We are speaking all this in the times of COVID-19. So how does the implementation of the World Bank reforms facilitate private sector during these times and post-COVID-19?
Thank you, Mordecai. I think I had hinted part of it in my remarks. The private sector is key. We do everything we do as public service to equip private sector, to make sure they can access credit, to make sure that there is no any processes that impede them accessing any activities that they would want to do with public. I recall we have different indicators. Some of it, of course, is starting a business. KCCA previously used to do inspection, pre-inspection. So pre-inspection before they give you a trading license was done, but that was a little bit laborious. It would take more time, and it also increase cost or create a breeding ground for corruption. In part of our reforms that we reviewed was to remove that part so that you do a post-inspection than a pre-inspection. You issue a trading license and then later do a post-inspection. Why they do a pre-inspection is only when an activity can affect human and safety, human life or safety of the citizens in like if it's a pharmacy or it's food vendors, that's the ones they have to inspect. We are doing online registration for companies. Online registration, we think that it is going to increase the formalization of businesses and the economy. The private sector thrives on when all companies are formal. When you work in an informal sector, there are benefits that you miss in getting. For example, accessing a loan, opening a bank account, or even accessing any other service that would help your business grow. So as improving formalization is key, and we hope that businesses can excel in that area. We keep on working, of course, in the COVID times to make sure that, again, the access of credit is done, and also providing a very good regulatory framework for resolving insolvency. Part of the World Bank, what it measures is how quick can you solve commercial disputes. Commercial disputes sometimes take 2.5 years or so. So as a government, we have in URSB, we are a custodian of liquidation and insolvency. Liquidation and insolvency provides a framework on how best they can do debt restructuring for any companies that are ailing, but it also provides other practitioners. Like we have a practitioners register, insolvency practitioners register, which certifies accountants and lawyers to make sure that we can provide the right resource and do restructuring for ailing companies. There are also a process to expedite resolving companies, so that if you have a company and you're actually sure that it wants to close, it shouldn't derail you, and that process is also being worked upon. So as we wade the COVID waters, again, URSB has adopted automation as a key growth to make sure that we can transform the society and reduce human contact and human interaction, but as well provide the service that is required.
Thank you. What is the role of the Minstry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you're asking this question when even today and yesterday a conference is on to explain the budget. But as the name says, it's a Minstry of Finance to mobilize resources and allocate it to priority areas of government according to the Vision 2040 and the National Development Plan. But I think what you are interested in, the question you are raising, is links to what she has responded to. And I will try to be as practical as I can. So, when we interface with URSB and we make sure that companies can easily formalize, they don't have to run all over the place filling forms, paying, that it becomes easy, and they get convinced that they need to formalize, because then you can access the resources, say, in UDB, or even partnerships with UDC, or even access training under, say, the private sector foundation and other agencies. Then you know, and you have heard my bosses communicate about resources to the level of 1 trillion to UDB, mainly for tourism, agriculture and industry or manufacturing. Resources going to UDC to deal with sectors like tea, cassava, fruits in a practical level, partnership with companies. You have also heard of the reforms taking place. We've just completed construction of under Ministry of Lands of 22 zonal land offices to ensure those who are still requiring land can easily get secure titles within their localities in Moroto, in Arua, Guru, Kabale, and Rukunjiri, and what have you. So basically it's provided that environment, those resources, that coordination, as she mentioned, under doing business task force, for example, that coordination, that, what I can say, facilitating those not only the coordination across agencies, having platforms, sector working groups, coordinating with those. You have heard about meetings like we have been having over the last 2 weeks and even now with wealth creation about are there more resources in the economy that we can bring to board. We coordinate in government, and for example, the other day the director budget was basically communicating about between the youth fund, the women fund, the MIIC funds. We have like 300 billion resources. We have microfinance support center, additional significant resources. So looking at mechanisms on how best economic development can be achieved by allocating these resources better, and also implementing and monitoring those programs in a more efficient way to get value for the money. And then in that process, you are basically creating that appropriate business environment, because these people are scattered, but they have a location. To the extent that they are coordinated, whether as women or under the yoga group, then we should be able to reach them efficiently and ensure that public resources are getting value and the achievement of economic development becomes sustainable.
Well, Ms. Naivale, what are the agencies that are involved in Uganda's doing business ranking? Because you mentioned of like URSB, where you come from, what are other agencies?
Thank you. The agencies that contribute to most of the indices that are identified in World Bank, those that directly contribute. There is URA, which I earlier mentioned. There is KCCA. There is electricity, that's umeme. NIRA for, because it's a complementing agency. Because for it, if it provides the person identification, and we all agree and knowing that this is the person, we can identify you by both your date of birth, that's a NIRA. And then we have other agencies, I think I also mentioned KCC and of course us. So part of enforcing contracts is also Mojika. It's part of it. I think maybe Doctor, do you remember any other?
Just mentioned, yes, you have mentioned the Ministry of Justice, you have mentioned the Uganda Investment Authority, we have mentioned the NITAU. For example, when you are engaging in this integration, NITAU is basically the lead for driving e-government in the country. So basically, there are about 11 or 12 that we regularly meet under that doing business reform process. URSB normally engages at this registration level with about 7 agencies.
And for each, at least they have an indicator they contribute to. And I'm glad that now umeme improved part of its processes. It has actually improved by 7 points. As well as URA. URA is charged for trading across borders. Trading across borders is the time it takes for goods to transit from one area to another. And that has actually improved by different reforms that we have engaged. It has, of course, improved by collaboration with the internal affairs for the border posts. So the one-stop border post improved that ranking incredibly, because they have reduced on time taken. Best practices in other countries, it takes almost 1 hour. So we hope also as we can improve and find ourselves taking less than an hour or so.
And also URA paying taxes.
Yes, please.
Paying taxes.
Well, the continuation of reoccurring or saying what you've already said is to throw more light for that person that has just joined us and about the whole of this adjustment that are actually fixing the gaps that have been in the system. I will again ask, what are the reforms being carried out? If you could throw more light one by one.
Yeah, thank you very much. The reforms, I will start with, of course, starting a business, which I have over 7 agencies, and they are really critical in the role of increasing ease of doing business. And if I will start with URS, because that's where the business starts, it's the first entry point of registering a business. We have come up with a lean MEMAT. A lean MEMAT, if you're used to our memorandum and articles of association, they used to be bulky, they used to be 30-paged, but now we've reduced it to 1. And the recent reforms that we're working on, even with this COVID-19, we are trying to upload all those forms into the system so that you don't even have to come to RSP with a paper. The time we improved to have 1-page lean MEMAT was to help clients not fill very many forms. It was also to help us upload it on the system as the way we are uptaking technology. There is, I had talked about pre-inspection of KCCA, which now was removed. We've also merged processes. Previously, we used to do name reservation. You go back to the bank and pay, and then you come back to your RSP. But that process was removed, and you have to only pay at the end when you're doing a company incorporation. And with those reforms, we've seen ourselves reduce in time taken. We have actually reduced the cost it takes. Cost in terms of time and cost in terms of money. Sometimes someone travels all the way and they have to actually go back to the bank, then come back to URSP. So all those reforms have been removed. The other area is the security and interest. I talk about it because we are in very difficult times, and our public and also business people who are ailing, they need to know that there is an alternative of how best they can explore their assets they have in terms of fixed assets and also in collateral, something that is movable. It could be a leasing agency that has trucks. It could be a warehouse. It could also be your vehicle that you can attach. We have gone ahead to link with the motor vehicle registry. The motor vehicle registry is housed in Minstry of Finance. But our linkage, of course, since we are promoting movable collateral, it helps us link and know which vehicle is attached. And that goes with the credibility of our society. As we promote collateral registration and promote accessing affordable credit, our society who are lenders, they also have to be credible enough so that we can track them easily. So our registry of chattels or securities interest in movable property is also very key. We have also the insolvency. I talked about resolving insolvency, and there are other amendments that we are working on. VAT under URA normally charges also does a pre-inspection. But because of the lack of the amendment of some laws in the VAT and also in the Companies Act, some amendments can only be done to accommodate some of these reforms. The reforms under URA would be to remove the pre-inspection, and then they come after, just like the way KCCA are doing. Also under Companies Act, there is a seal, a mandatory seal that is embedded in the Companies Act, and that has to be removed. We are also working on the amendments. Then another amendment that should be done for us to move forward in Companies Act is to provide a clause for protecting minority shareholders. The World Bank requires to explicitly show how basically to show how are you protecting the minority shareholders. In the current Companies Act, it's provided, but it's not explicit enough. And when we are reviewing the Companies Act, it was mandated that we can as well change that so that it is very explicit, it is not ambiguous, but it is clear and precise to show that some minority shareholders can be protected. We are working with other agencies to increase integration. Already I've talked about integration, but it is important that we integrate with all these agencies. We've also improved access to registration services in different points under the arrangement of TREP, the Tax Expansion Payers Program. That is under URA, KCCA, and DRSB, and Ministry of Local Government. That has aided us access almost 72 service points in Uganda. We started like 5 years back, then we increased, but we started with 4 offices for URSB, and then when we joined the Taxpayers Expansion Program, it has promoted access. We are located in different municipalities, we are located in all regions. So in case we know there is a public that does not access internet, so if you don't access internet, at least you access the physical structures of URSB, and all those agencies will promote it.
All right, thank you so much. Well, wonderful. I'll give you 1 minute, Mr. Ngategize, to make your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, and thanks to NBS for this opportunity. I think I'll mention maybe 3 things. 1, the most critical thing to improving our businesses is really lies with our mindset. And I think COVID has given us an opportunity to listen in to ourselves and figure out what we want to do. To appreciate the importance of savings, to appreciate the importance of partnerships with others, being a member of a circle and investment group, to appreciate that you possibly need multiple sources of incomes to manage your risks. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, in partnership with a number of MDs, including URSB, are available, and the budget process is available to provide this. My last point is basically we can't run away from automation, from making use of the phone to communicate, to transact with the banks, to have your land title checks, to do what. So all the agencies around us are being mobilized, and individuals and enterprises to do that. You no longer have to fly to China to procure things. You can see them here, pay, and receive them. Cargo is moving. So to me, that's my message. Mindset, digitalization, and coordination of efforts and processes across a number of stakeholders.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To you, Ms. Naibale.
Yeah, thank you. As we wade the wave of COVID, I have grown to appreciate that there is need for more coordination. It's now or never that God has provided us with a chance to sit, rethink, innovate, create, and actually make sure that we can transform our society. The existing reforms can tell us that we can do better, that you can have alternative means of financing, you can also access alternative means of providing the service better, especially for public service. If you're working as a public servant or you have an agency that actually contributes to the growth of private sector, it is now or never that we have to work together and actually adopt digitalization, more coordination, and transform whatever we have to provide to the society. They need us more.
Thank you so much. Well, we just cannot go beyond this. Just like they said, the future now of this world now, the words that have been said are becoming increasingly true. When they said that, you know what, the future of this world now belongs to those who will endeavor to put their time in innovation and creativity. Just like he said about mindset, now it is the time to get to work with innovation and creativity. I wish a blessed day. Good morning.